This week's Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff's Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com.
Welcome to another edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with Carol Niemi, who is a writer and contributor to the Reporter papers, among other things. And we're going to get into a monthly column that she does for the Reporter papers and about some other marketing things that she's doing around town. But good morning, Carol.
Good morning.
I appreciate I appreciate your taking some time. So give us a little feel first, like what is your background? Where have you worked, and kind of what brought you to this place with the Reporter papers now?
Well, it's a long story. I did get a PhD in English from UGA and was a bit disillusioned with the otherworldliness of it. And I ended up in advertising, started as an advertising copywriter, was made creative director, vice president and creative director of a major Atlanta agency. I was told I was the first woman in Atlanta to have that position. So I was a pioneer without knowing it. But I have always been a writer above all else. And I wrote my first short story when I was 8 years old. And I've, been looking for that story, because they say that the story exists before the writer. The story exists looking for the person to tell the story. And when I was in high school, we moved to the Philippines, and I saw there poverty and misery like you cannot imagine. But what always struck me and my whole family was the people were so happy. They were joyful. They were grateful. They were so generous. My father used to say, don't admire anything a Filipino has, because he'll give it to you. And I came back to the U.S. and I came back for college. I looked at my peers and I thought, we're so ungrateful. We're so lucky. We don't know it. We're so ungrateful. Was I ever like that? So that story has lived in me ever since then. And then more than 12 years ago, I wrote my first story for Dick Williams at the Dunwoody Crier. And it was about one of my neighbors who lived at the entrance to my subdivision every year put this giant Bible in her yard at Christmas time. And it was open to the story of the Nativity. And I was at a cocktail party and people were saying, it's not Christmas till we see her Bible. What a lot of them didn't know was she was fighting cancer. So that clicked in my head, and it went back to the story that was still in me about these people in the Philippines who were struggling, and yet they were grateful and happy. So that was the first story I wrote for Dick, and that's kind of been what I've written about ever since. And then when he retired and I went over to the Reporter, we launched Worth Knowing in the spring of 2019. About a month later, guess what the AJC launched? Inspire Atlanta. So, and the difference is we're hyper local, and they get a lot of their stories from the AP and who knows where. So we're hyper local, but we actually did beat them at that. But we're so small. I'm always looking for stories that need to be told, and that's what I do.
Well, yeah, and as a monthly column, also you're not doing 30 of these a month. You're doing one of these a month, so you've got to obviously kind of pick and choose a story that you think is going to resonate with your readers a little bit more than just pulling stuff off the wire or doing short bits.
Well, I try to get into. I'm not a reporter. I'm a writer. And I care more, not just about what people do, but why they do it. And that's what I try to get into. Now, when I wrote for Dick, I have always had a jump page, and, I had no word limit. Now I have a word limit, so I really edit. But I will tell you, my training writing 30-second TV commercials, was great in terms of paring down to the essentials, because you only have 30 seconds. You get rid of anything that's not essential. So that helps a lot. But yeah, I mean, and I'm always looking for these stories because they're out there. There are these people out there that defy the odds. And I mean, it's so trite to say, but they make lemonade out of lemons. And they're the people that inspire me, and I think they inspire other people. So they're the ones I'm looking for.
So you're writing this column, but you also have your own company too that,
Yes.
that does marketing. So tell me about that. What is that company, and what do you focus on with them, with that company?
It's Stand Marketing. It's an LLC, and our tagline is "Stand for Something." And if you were to go to the website, you'd see the headline is, "If your brand doesn't stand out, someone else's will." And the only way to stand out is to stand for something. And you can look at all the great brands, and they stand for something, not just features and benefits. I mean, look at Amazon. It's customer is king. That is the one thing everybody knows about Amazon is you can return anything. You don't even have to give a reason. If you have Amazon Prime, you get free shipping. You are king. And you can look at Nike, just do it. How many years have they been saying that? And what they're saying is no excuses, people. Just get out there and do it. And you can look, at numerous of the great brands, and they all stand for something. And so we do. I mean, I've written a gazillion websites, and we do all of that. I do a lot of PR for my clients, but the biggest thing that we do is the strategy, the brand strategy. And to a lot of existing companies that want to rebrand, they don't even know what they stand for. And one problem too with a lot of these existing companies is they look at what their competitors are doing, and they just want to do the same thing but a little bit better. Well, that's not going to work. The people are so inundated with stuff, with information. It doesn't matter whether it's my column in the Reporter or pop-ups like are just blowing your mind out of your head every time you go on the internet. I mean, that's what we're all competing against. We're all competing against every single bit of information that's out there. And there are billions of websites. And I mean, the pop-ups are getting worse and worse and worse. I think everybody agrees to that. So how do you get noticed?
Right. So what, when you, I imagine you get a number of, people sending in ideas for your column every month.
Not enough, Mitch.
Not enough. Okay. Well, we'll see if we can get. We'll send the word. We'll get the word out and see if we can get you some more. But what pops for you? What makes that pitch pop for you that makes it stand out and you say, "Wow, that's what I want to write about this month."
Well, I have several issues that I've written about my entire career, and not just written about, but actually been involved in. And one is homelessness. And I don't mean, oh, whoa, you're homeless. But there are many people that are homeless who work their way out of it. And their stories are amazing. And usually it's not just them on their own. There's usually also somebody that believes in them and helps them on their journey. So I've written a lot about that. I've met people you cannot believe who are so incredible, like the Reverend Will Givens, who is the first senior pastor at an historically white church in Buckhead. His story it was amazing. And after I told it, he sent me a personal thank you note. And there are people out there they're swimming upstream for a good reason.
Right. And obviously, I'm sure you've seen a lot more of that over the past year. How has either your writing of what you're writing about or how you're writing changed over the last 14 months or so?
Well, one of the things I've written about more is the idea of community. And that really did start during the pandemic. I wrote about victory gardens and acts of kindness, all of that. But we really do have more in common than we don't. We need to be reminded of that, because if we lose our sense of community, we're just a bunch of like nothings all floating out in space. So that's a big topic right now.
Yeah. So when someone reads one of your columns, what is the action you want them to take? what would make you feel like, wow, this is worthwhile if they did this when they read my column this month?
Well, most of the time I have some contact info about the person. So, for example, the column running right now is about the old New York bookshop in Midtown, and I'm a Pat Conroy junkie. And I love, everything he wrote. And in the 1980s and early 90s, in Midtown I believe it's on Juniper Street, there was in an old house, there was a bookshop that sold rare used books, and it was Pat Conroy's hangout. And actually, he became best friends with the owners, and they used to have these book signing parties. So Terry Kay, Ann Rivers Siddons, all these great Southern writers of that time would launch their books at these invitation-only book parties. And they were, politicians were invited. Anyway, they're now operating, they closed, and they're operating out of their home in Sandy Springs. And so I wrote about them. And to me, it was just an honor to talk to somebody that knew my idol so well. And they since told me they've gotten quite a bit of phone calls because of it. And not only that, but my editor, who's now leaving us, said they had a lot of traffic on the website, on our website, for that story. That really made me happy. So anytime I can get results, you're a PR person. I mean,
right.
I'm doing PR, if you think about it, for causes that I believe in. So.
Well, that was my leading question. I guess my leading question was, you want people to read that and say, how can I help? How can I contribute? How can I volunteer? And I guess ideally, and I was looking at that article this morning on the website, and I guess ideally it'd be nice if someone said, hey, let's move that out of your house and back into a real bookstore again, right?
I don't think they want to do that, though.
Well, I was going to say they've been doing it for 50 years. They made somebody else can have it. I don't want to do that again. I'm happy having a 20-foot walk to work to the bookstore every morning.
It's because I write this column, and this is just selfishness on my part. I got to know these people. I mean, Pat Conroy was the best man at their wedding in Italy.
Yeah.
I mean, so what I do is I just meet these people that I wouldn't meet any other way, and they're all interesting in their own way.
So I'm looking at the website, just kind of giving folks an idea of kind of the recent stories. So there was that story about the bookstore, and then there was a story about canines comforting kids at Children's Healthcare and shopping helping prevent homelessness in the pandemic. Donating plasma to fight COVID, story about boxing and Parkinson's, a story about a local Downey jeweler who died at 93. So, people can kind of look at that and, go to reporternewspapers.net and you can easily find your worth knowing column, and people can kind of see. I always encourage folks, if you're going to pitch a reporter, you want to see their work ahead of time. So you're pitching a story that makes sense to what they like to write about.
And actually, I haven't settled on anything for July yet.
Okay. So there's a slot. There's a slot. Okay.
We have a new editor, and I'm going to turn in my stuff early for her because this is going to be her first print edition.
Yeah.
She's putting together. So I want to help her by turning it in early. So I have an early deadline in June. So send me something. I have some ideas, but I'm not convinced they're the right ones.
Okay. So plug for the new editor. So Amy Wenk is the new editor, who has a strong background in reporting in Atlanta. She wrote for Patch and wrote for the Business Chronicle for a lot of years here in Atlanta. She's good folks. I think you'll like working with her.
I like her.
And John Rush, who's the outgoing editor, is now doing some contributing work with the Supporter Report. So I talked to him last week, so he's excited about some of the work that he's going to be doing over there for Maria for her publication. So tell me something. This is kind of the fun part of these conversations, and you kind of teased me about this earlier. Tell me about something that's fun and different about you that folks might not know about, or probably don't know about.
Well, local people know. And by the way, I would say, just like the reporter is hyper local, I'm hyper local. So my PhD focused on Southern Lit, which is basically Southern history as well. So I'm on the board of the Dunwoody Preservation Trust, and I'm vice president of marketing, which means I also do a whole lot of PR. And I rewrote the website a couple years ago, and that is one of my passions because we do a lot of education. In fact, we run the only history camp for kids that we know of in Metro Atlanta. We even ran it last summer throughout the pandemic, didn't have a single case of COVID. We do adult education. We have a small museum that we're setting up. We are the Donaldson Bannister Farm that we manage is one of the premier wedding venues in this part of Atlanta. And I'm very, very proud of the work we do. We have only one full-time paid employee. Most of the work is done by volunteers who are just passionate about it. And that gets back to my theme of community. You can't have a strong community if people aren't connected in some way. And so it's not that we're saving historic buildings, because there are these old buildings that need to be saved, but they kind of remind people that we have something in common. And the Donaldson Bannister Farm is also a public park because we have a partnership with the city of Dunwoody. So it's just gorgeous. I invite people to just come visit. It's this 1870 farm in the middle of suburban Atlanta.
And so where is that?
It's at the corner of Chamblee, Dunwoody, and Vermac Roads. In fact, Atlanta Magazine named our Rose Garden one of the top 10 gardens in Atlanta last year.
Okay. So I'm just thinking where that
is.
So
if you take Mount Vernon,
yeah,
Mount Vernon, the corner of Mount Vernon and Chamblee, Dunwoody, there's that big white farmhouse there.
Right.
We own that. DPT owns that, but a law firm rents it. In fact, they like it so much they pay their whole year's rent at the beginning of the year to make sure they keep it. And it's a beautiful house, but you can't, as the public, even go in there, make a request. And the agreement we have is they have to let people come in. So if you were at that intersection facing the house, you would turn right on Chamblee, Dunwoody, and you would go a few blocks, and the Donaldson Bannister Farm is on the left.
Okay,
We have now interviewed everybody who ever lived in that house. We have them on video.
That's cool.
And, because we're keeping archives of not just the past, but we've been recording stuff about COVID. And, our job is to record history, not just, the distant past, but we're making history right now with everything we do. So
that's great.
That's one of my passions.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm assuming that'll be digitally, that'll be on the website somewhere where people can see it and all that at some point.
You can go to, Google Dunwoody Preservation Trust, and you'll get to the website, which I wrote. We rebranded when I became VP of Marketing, we rebranded. And we are now telling the story of what we do, which is it's community. Like, again, that is just one of my passions and maybe it's because as my father was a naval officer, I never lived anywhere more than 4 years growing up, and I realized the importance of community.
All right, so I'm going to give a plug. So the website is dunwoodypreservationtrust.org. So I'll put that in the notes here too, so folks can easily find that. Yeah, it's a nice website.
Thank you.
Very cool.
I think our summer camp is sold out again. We sell out every summer. But if you have a child and you're interested, it's a day camp, and you can just take a week at a time. Go ahead and go on there, and if you're interested, see if there are any spots. Sometimes something comes up and people have to pull out. So the reviews of the summer camp, and also our adult education that we have every month, History Alive. Last month, May, the topic was fighting fascism with film. And we had a professor from Mercer come, and he's a history professor, but he teaches a class on film, not film production, but how film affects what we think.
Right.
And that was his topic. It was fascinating. So those are good topics too.
Very good. All right. So now we get to the fun lightning round. So, okay. So last last book that you read that you want to admit to publicly.
Okay, I actually want to get this title right because I'm not quite finished with it, but it is an amazing book. It's called Attached: The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller.
You want to hold it up so we can see? Yeah. Is that
you want me to go?
No, that's okay. I thought you had the book there. That's fine. That's fine.
Done that, but attachment theory is kind of a new thing in mental health. Instead of going to a psychoanalyst and going blah de blah de blah de blah de blah for the next 20 years of your life and just going over the same old stuff over and over again, these people, and they're not the only ones, but they kind of encapsulate it in this book, have come up with this theory that there are basically 3.5 different styles of attachment based on your childhood. And it's all scientific, though. It's not any like woe is me or anything. And then and they have tests in the book so you can figure out what your attachment style is. And then you can figure out how, if it's not a really good attachment, and they don't make any value judgments. I do, but it's not judgmental. But then you can figure out how to improve your life. So it's a great book.
All right. So favorite Atlanta restaurant?
Like I said, I'm hyper local, and I adore Novo Cucina.
Is that in Dunwoody Village?
Yes, and at night it's magic. It's pure magic, and I was eating there all during the pandemic. I mean, in the dead of winter, we were out there on the patio with little twinkly lights everywhere and torches, giving us warmth. The food is the gelato. You could kill somebody for one taste.
That's great. I haven't eaten there in a long time, but that's a great place. All right, favorite guilty pleasure?
Well, I don't know that it's guilty, but I'm a weightlifter, and I'm addicted to a class called Body Pump. And it's basically weightlifting choreographed to music. And I've been doing it for years, and I'm amazed at how much weight I can lift, but I'm not any stronger in my real life. So I don't know what the connection is, but it just makes me feel mentally and physically strong and healthy, and I love it.
That's great. All right, favorite local getaway?
Barnsley Resort.
Okay. Favorite non-work hobby? And maybe that's weightlifting, but
well, that, and also I am a wine snob, and I belong to a very good group of friends who are also wine snobs. And throughout the pandemic, we have been having wine dinners in our homes. And luckily, one couple has a heated screen porch. So when the pandemic was really raging, even in the winter, we were sitting on their screen porch, wine and we bring food to pair with it and everything. So they keep me going. Yeah.
Do you have some wineries in North Georgia that you like to visit?
I like Yona Mountain, and I like Wolf Mountain, except it's always so crowded. And I do like Frogtown. They have some really excellent wines. And then Engelheim, which is off the beaten track in Ellijay, has a Petit Manseng that I adore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I've also been to Napa, Sonoma. I've been to wineries in Italy, France. Whenever I can visit, I do.
So do you have a nice selection there at the house that you keep for the?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Excellent. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you want to mention, either about the column or the rest of your work? I know we've covered a good bit of ground here.
I would just say again, the topics that interest me that I would love to have some people, contact me about are community, homelessness, animal welfare, and that usually is pet rescue, but it can also be like the dogs at Children's Health Care of Atlanta, or the column that'll be coming out. It might be out now for June, about what happens to senior pets that nobody wants. And to me, that topic rang a bell because it's similar to what happens to old people that nobody wants. So
good topic. It's a strong topic. So. Excellent. We've been talking with Carol Niemi, who is a columnist with the Reporter Papers. Her column is called Worth Knowing, and it appears every month online and in the print edition of the Reporter Papers in Buckhead, Sandy Springs, Brookhaven, Dunwoody. Did I forget anything? Is that all four?
No, and I think maybe it dribbles over into what's technically maybe Chambly and Peachtree Corners.
Okay.
A lot of those people were part of historical Dunwoody, and then that's what's kind of confusing is historical Dunwoody was this giant area, and now we have all these little chopped up cities. So,
yeah.
And also, could I just give you my email?
Yeah, I was going to ask your email if folks want to send you story ideas too.
Okay, it's worthknowingnow@gmail.com.
Okay, great.
And I'm open to any and all ideas, particularly in these topics. And and the other thing though, because we're hyper local, we need some connection to our coverage area.
Absolutely. So it's got to be something related to Chambly, Brookhaven, Dunwoody, Sandy Springs, Buckhead.
So it could just be a leader that is in one of those four cities.
Right.
Organization might be elsewhere, but yeah.
Excellent. Well, Carol, thank you. Appreciate your time this morning. And folks, as always, you can find our archive on our website, leffassociates.com. Just click on the 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight pull down, and you'll see a video option and an audio option. So if you're one of those folks who likes to see the pictures, then we can do that. And if you just like to listen at the gym, play the audio, you can do it that way too. And join us next week for another edition of our 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight.